Okay, welcome back to Module 3. And in Module 3, we are now going to be breaking down these different systems of soilless farming. Like I told you in the other class, we have two major systems. We have the soilless, we have the substrate system, and we have the non-substrate system. And in non-substrate system, we mentioned three. We have hydroponics, we have aquaponics, and we have aeroponics. So let's start with explaining hydroponics. Now when you hear the word hydroponics is actually a word derived from a Greek word called hydro and ponos. Hydro and ponos. Hydro, like we all know, is water, and ponos means labor or work. Okay, so when you hear hydroponics, it simply means water work. So the major thing that is working in hydroponics is water. Okay, like if you look at the picture we have here, you will find out that the root of your plant is growing inside water. So in hydroponics system, the root of this plant will grow inside water. That is just the difference. So all the types of hydroponics we are going to be mentioning to you, we are going to be showing you. You find out that the major thing about all of them is that their root will always be inside water. So that is just the thing about hydroponics. You understand? So what we do is this, that water now will not just be a plain water. We can now start be putting the nutrients we normally give to our plants inside the water. Okay, and in that case, if you're putting the nutrients inside water, it means that the nutrients you'll be putting definitely are going to be nutrients that are soluble. It's going to be soluble nutrients that when it's there, when you mix it with water, it will mix properly with water. You understand? So we're going to be getting soluble. You're not going to put a granular fertilizer into an hydroponic system. No, you will not do that. So that's why if you want to do that, but when we get to nutrient part, we're going to discuss that. Okay, then another thing is that the plant takes food directly from the water. The plant takes food directly from the water. I'm sure you understand that very well. So in hydroponics, water plus nutrient replaces soil. So the major thing here is that water and nutrient will replace soil. Now I know you will now ask, if we've taken care of water, we've taken care of nutrients, what about air and what about anchor? We're going to get to that. Okay, now let's look at different types of hydroponics, and we're going to be starting with the first one. It's called deep water culture. Deep water culture. Water culture is one example of a hydroponic system, and in this particular system, the root stays inside water. Like I've always told us before, the root will always be inside the water. But now we're talking about the nutrient-based water. Now let's explain the architecture. Now if you look at this now, this is a deep water culture settings. And now, if you look at that bowl here, that is the farming medium. And in that farming medium, you have your plants growing and the roots inside water. But now look at what makes it deep water culture. What makes it deep water culture is this. Remember, we are looking for three things: water, oxygen, that's air, and number one, anchor. If you look at the small blue box there, you can see that is what is holding the plant. It's serving as an anchor. Now the root is inside water already. That's sorted out. Now the issue now we have here is oxygen. That's talking about air. Now for us to be able to provide oxygen for it, if you look here, we have some stones, air stones inside, that is being pumped by a pump, by a pump. Now when this pump is actually pumping this, it produces bubbles. The air stones going to produce air, which brings bubbles in this water. And once you are creating bubble in water, you are providing oxygen. That's why if you have some things that if you have some mixtures, let's say if you have some mixtures of nutrients, whatever way, they will always tell you to go and stir it. Why you are stirring it is for the microorganisms inside that plant, inside that water, to be able to find air. You understand? So that's why you are stirring it. So once bubble is created inside water, you are providing air for the living organisms there. So that is what we do here. So for these roots to provide air for that, once you pump these air stones, they provide bubble, thereby providing air for these roots. And with that, you have gotten all that you need for your plant to grow. In terms of water, is inside already nutrient-based water, and the bubble is doing its job. So you can see that this is so easy. That's how deep water culture works. Now we're going to look at another example or another system. Okay, now let us look at another method of hydroponics. I've talked about deep water culture. This is called nutrient film technique, NFT, nutrient film technique. Okay, and the nutrient film technique, a thin film of nutrient water flows through a pipe. That is just the difference. You know, the other one on deep water culture, we left an air stone inside to generate oxygen. But in this one, what we did is this: the water doesn't remain one place. It doesn't remain one place. We have a reservoir. Like if you look at the picture, we have a reservoir where water moves into your nutrient-based water. So what is happening here is the water is flowing. The water is flowing. Now, the water in the tank will be pumped into your system, and it will also have a place where the water returns back to the tank, and from there again is pumped back to it. So the water is there, but it's flowing, and because it's flowing, it's generating oxygen for it. Do you understand it now? That is the concept. Like, and we have a flat and we have a vertical method of NFT. Like, if you look at this, is a vertical method of NFT. It is slanted a little. So with this now, the water is draining back into the tank and the tank is pumping it up again. So the water remains at the same level. It is not dry at all. It remains at the same level, but even at that the same level, the water remains fresh and is having air. You understand? So this movement of water creates oxygen for it. So that is the difference between NFT and deep water culture. Okay, and you know that all this method I'm mentioning now, they are called active method of hydroponics because of the introduction of pump. This is a construction. If you look down here, you have the pump. You understand? And this is a normal. I posted this. One of the persons that taught me, this is the construction he normally makes. Okay, with this you can actually be doing some vegetables that doesn't require too much roots. You understand? You can do this some vegetables that doesn't require too much roots. But that is NFT system. Okay, so we have another method of hydroponics, and among all these methods, this particular one is called a passive method of hydroponics. Remember, I told you other ones are active because you have to introduce pumps and all that. But here, this is a passive hydroponics. You are not introducing any air pump. You are not introducing any pump. You are not introducing any air. So you are not introducing anything that has to do with power. That's why it's called a passive hydroponic system. An interactive method of hydroponics. In this particular case, we are not introducing anything like I told you. It's one of the cheapest and the easiest one to do. You have your reservoir, you have your bucket where, or your medium where you put in your nutrient-rich water, and all you now need to be doing is just to be monitoring it. Just to be monitoring it and be topping up nutrients when you feel the nutrient has gone down, or top up water when you feel the water has gone down. It's called the crafting method, and the crafting method is good and it's also technical. It's easier and cheaper for you to go into, but remember it's also very technical, and this are the things we're going to be explaining to you as we continue to learn on these things. So what I'm going to do now is to list all the method. We have a whole lot of method of hydroponics. We have the wick, we have wick method, we have dry and wet method. We have so many methods, but I've explained these three major methods that you need to know about, and I'm just showing you this other one so that you get to know that there are other methods, not just these three that I mentioned. And remember, people will continue to research to also discover more and more methods at which people can be able to do this hydroponics system. So what we are going to be doing in our next module is that we are now going to quickly touch aquaponics and aeroponics. We're not going to dwell too much in it, but we're going to put both of them together in the next module so that we explain to you about aquaponics and aeroponics. And I want you to know, in setting up these things, you will check the one that is suitable for your environment, check the ones you could afford, and be able to now key into that and now understand the science of managing air, managing nutrients, and managing water. Once you do all these three things, you are good to go. Thank you so much, and we are going to meet in the next module. Bye.